The unbreakable guard, a human captured. James Carter opened his eyes to darkness. His head throbbed. His arms and legs felt heavy, as if chained. He struggled to move, but cold metal cuffs held him down. A strange humming sound filled the air, vibrating through his bones. His vision cleared, revealing glowing blue walls surrounding him. The air smelled sharp, metallic, not Earth's air. Panic kicked in. He remembered the attack, the alien warships, the explosions, the screams of his crew. They were defending Earth's last space outpost when the enemy arrived. They had no chance. He had fought until the end. And now, he was here. A low mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. Human prisoner is awake. Bright lights flickered, revealing figures standing outside his cell. Aliens. Their skin was deep purple, their eyes glowing like embers. Tall and armored, they looked like warriors. One stepped forward, scanning him with a floating orb. The device beeped. "This one is strong," the alien muttered in a deep voice. "He might survive." Survive. The word sent a chill down James' spine. Before he could speak, the floor beneath him shifted, and his cuffs unlocked. Gravity changed, pulling him forward. He tumbled out of the cell, landing hard on his knees. "On your feet, human," a sharp voice commanded. James looked up and froze. Standing before him was a tall, elegant but deadly figure, the alien queen. Her presence was overwhelming. Her armor shimmered like liquid metal, shifting as she moved. Her eyes were piercing silver, cold, and unreadable. The guards bowed to her. James, however, stayed on his knees, breathing hard, refusing to show fear. She studied him with an amused expression. "So this is the human who fought until the last moment," she said softly. "Interesting." James clenched his fists. "Kill me or let me go." The queen chuckled. "Oh, you misunderstand, soldier. You are not here to die. You are here for special training." James frowned. "What training?" The queen leaned closer. "To make you stronger." Her voice was almost mocking, as if she didn't believe in his strength. James glared at her. "Humans don't break easily." The queen smiled. "We shall see." She turned to her guards. "Take him." James braced himself, but before he could react, something stabbed into his neck, a thin, metallic needle. Darkness swallowed him. Inside the training chamber, James woke up again, but this time, he was not in a cell. The room around him was massive, shaped like an arena, with metallic walls stretching high into the darkness. Strange alien symbols glowed on the floor, forming a giant circular pattern. A robotic voice spoke. "Phase 1. Begin." The floor beneath him rumbled. James spun around, his heart pounding. From the shadows, 3 creatures emerged. They were not aliens, not like the Queen's guards. These were monsters. Their skin was rough like stone, their teeth razor-sharp, and their eyes burned red. Their clawed hands scraped against the ground, leaving deep marks in the metal. James' instincts screamed. Danger. A laugh echoed from above. The Queen watched from a high platform, amused. "Survive this, soldier," she said. "Then we shall talk." James' mind raced. He had no weapons, no armor. Only his fists, his speed, and his mind. The first creature lunged. James dodged just in time, rolling to the side. Its claws missed him by inches, slicing through the floor like butter. The second beast came from behind. James reacted fast, using the creature's momentum against it. He ducked and slammed his elbow into its ribs. It howled but barely flinched. The third monster was smarter. It waited, watching. James breathed hard, already feeling exhaustion creeping in. His body was still weak from whatever drug they used to knock him out. But he wouldn't give up. A warrior never gives up. The creatures circled him, sensing his fatigue. James focused. What would a human do that these beasts wouldn't expect? Then it hit him. They expected him to fight like prey. But he was a predator. He suddenly charged forward, not away. The creatures were surprised. James grabbed a loose piece of metal from the floor, swinging it like a weapon. The sharp edge cut deep into one of the creature's legs. It roared in pain, stumbling back. The queen raised an eyebrow. James didn't stop. He used his speed, staying low, moving unpredictably. He jumped onto the injured beast's back, using it as a platform to leap toward the second creature. His fists slammed into its eyes, the softest part of its body. The creature screamed, blinded. Now there was only one left. The third beast hesitated. It looked at James differently now. Not as prey, but as a threat. James grinned, standing tall. "Come on then," he muttered. "I'm just getting started." The queen's smile widened. This human, he was different. Hook ending. The arena floor shifted again, opening into a new chamber. A deep mechanical growl echoed through the room. Something far worse was coming next. And James, he was ready. The impossible trial. A human's strength is tested. James Carter stood in the center of the arena, his breath heavy, his muscles tense. The last battle had left bruises on his arms, but he was still standing. That was all that mattered. Above him, the alien queen, Syra, watched from her throne-like platform, her expression unreadable. She had expected him to die. But he didn't. Instead, he fought like a warrior. No weapons, no armor, just raw human instinct and intelligence. But this was just the beginning. A deep metallic grinding noise echoed through the arena as the floor beneath him shifted. The metal plates separated, revealing a dark, bottomless pit below. James barely had time to react before the floor vanished beneath his feet. He fell. The death chamber. James landed hard on a stone platform. His knees buckled, pain shot through his legs, but he forced himself to stand. The chamber around him was massive, ancient, and glowing with eerie blue light. It wasn't just an arena. It was a testing ground. A deep robotic voice echoed from the walls. Phase 2. Trial of the Strong. James exhaled. Of course. Another test. The queen's voice followed, her tone almost playful. Let's see how long you last, human. James scanned his surroundings. Massive stone pillars rose from the ground, covered in strange alien symbols. A thick fog crept along the floor, making it impossible to see what lay ahead. Then the ground rumbled. Something was coming. James tensed, his fists clenched. He was ready. The first opponent, the Titan beast. A massive creature stepped out of the shadows. It was nothing like the beasts he had faced before. This thing was at least 10 feet tall, its muscular body covered in thick, armored plating. Its eyes burned with white fire, and 2 jagged tusks protruded from its lower jaw. A giant alien warhammer was strapped to its back. James exhaled sharply. That thing could crush him in one hit. The creature roared, shaking the entire chamber. Then it charged. James moved, fast. The moment the beast swung its hammer, James ducked and rolled to the side, barely avoiding the impact. The hammer smashed into the stone floor, sending shards flying in all directions. James used the opening. He ran forward, jumped onto a stone pillar, and launched himself toward the creature's back. His fists slammed into the soft spot between its armor plates. The creature staggered, roaring in anger. But James didn't stop. He climbed onto its shoulders, wrapped his arms around its thick neck, and began choking it. The beast thrashed wildly, trying to throw him off, but James held on like a predator bringing down prey. Finally, the creature collapsed, its body shaking violently before going still. Silence filled the chamber. James rolled off the dead beast, breathing hard. His body ached, his hands were bloody, but he had won. Above him, the queen clapped. Slow, mocking, impressive. But James knew this wasn't over. The ground rumbled again. Something even worse was coming. The second opponent, The shadow stalker. The fog in the chamber grew thicker. The lights dimmed. A deep, clicking sound filled the air. It was fast. Unnatural. James turned in all directions, but he saw nothing. Then, a blur of movement, too fast to track. Something slashed across his arm, leaving a burning cut. James gritted his teeth. Invisible enemy. Great. He focused. He closed his eyes and listened. The clicking. The movement. The air shifting. Then he moved. James suddenly threw a handful of dust into the air, revealing a shadowy figure leaping toward him. Without hesitation, he spun and kicked, connecting with its ribs. The creature hissed and materialized, a tall, skeletal shadow-like being, its body flickering between solid and transparent. James didn't give it time to recover. He lunged, grabbing the creature's thin, fragile arms and twisting them backward until he heard a sickening snap. The shadow stalker screeched and vanished into nothingness. Gone. James exhaled, wiping the blood from his arm. The chamber was silent again. Then the robotic voice returned. Trial complete. The Queen's decision. James was lifted from the chamber by a powerful force, pulled back into the upper arena. He collapsed on the floor, his body screaming in pain. The Queen stood before him, her silver eyes glowing with intrigue. She knelt down, just inches from his face. No human has ever survived this far. James glared at her. Maybe you don't know humans well enough. The Queen smiled. Perhaps. She rose to her feet, turning to her guards. Prepare him for Phase 3. James exhaled. Another test. He didn't know what was next, but one thing was clear. This was only the beginning. Hook ending. The next challenge. As the guards dragged him away, James caught a glimpse of something massive in the shadows. It wasn't a creature. It was a machine. A cold robotic voice echoed. Next phase. Mind control. James clenched his fists. They were going to try to break his mind. Let them try. He was human. He was unbreakable. The mind control experiment. A human's will is challenged. James Carter's body ached as two alien guards dragged him down a long metallic corridor. His skin was covered in bruises, his arms felt heavy, and his head throbbed with exhaustion. He had survived 2 brutal trials, but now, this was something different. This wasn't about his strength anymore. This was about his mind. The chamber of the mind. The corridor opened into a circular chamber, dark and silent. The walls pulsed with a strange blue energy, shifting like liquid metal. In the center stood a massive machine, a terrifying structure of twisting wires, glowing panels, and mechanical arms ending in sharp needles. A cold, robotic voice filled the room. Initiating Phase 3. Mind conditioning. The guards strapped James onto a floating platform, locking his arms and legs with metal clamps. He struggled, but the restraints were unmovable. Then the alien queen, Kyra, entered. She stepped forward, her silver eyes glowing in the dim light. You have proven your body is strong, human. But let's see if your mind is just as unbreakable. James spat blood onto the floor. Try me. Kyra smiled. I intend to. With a wave of her hand, the machine came to life. The assault on his mind. Thin metallic arms extended, attaching small, glowing nodes to James' temples. A cold sensation crawled into his skull, followed by a sudden, violent invasion of his mind. His vision blurred, his thoughts twisted. Then he was no longer in the chamber. The first illusion. The war that never ended. James found himself standing on a battlefield. Explosions ripped through the sky. The smell of burning metal and blood filled the air. He was back on Earth's last space outpost, the very place he had been taken from. But something was wrong. His entire squad was still alive. Carter, a familiar voice called out. James turned and saw Commander Hayes, his mentor, his friend. He was running toward James, eyes filled with panic. "We need reinforcements. The aliens are breaking through." James' heart pounded. This wasn't real. He knew it wasn't, but it felt real. Gunfire. Screams. James looked down. A rifle was in his hands. His mind whispered, "Shoot. Fight. Save them." But no, this was a trick. James clenched his fists, trying to resist, but his body felt heavier, his mind foggy. The machine was trying to rewrite his memories, pulling him into a false reality. The Queen's voice whispered in his mind, "Stay here, James. Stay and fight. This is where you belong." James gritted his teeth. No. He closed his eyes. He forced himself to remember the truth. This battle had already happened. His team had died. When he opened his eyes again, the illusion shattered. The second illusion, breaking his will. The battlefield melted away, shifting into something far worse. James was now standing in a small, dimly lit room. In front of him, a young boy sat on the floor. His son. Except, James didn't have a son. But the boy looked at him with pleading eyes. "Dad, please, don't leave me." James' chest tightened. This wasn't real. But his mind screamed at him. What if it was? He stepped forward, hesitating. The machine was creating an emotional hook, forcing him to care, to stay. If he stayed too long, he would be trapped here forever. The Queen's voice returned. "Wouldn't it be nice to rest, James? Stay here. Be happy." James clenched his fists so tightly his nails dug into his palms. Pain. That was the only way to know he was real. He bit his own tongue, hard enough to taste blood. The illusion flickered. James grabbed the boy's shoulders and whispered, "You are not real." The boy's face twisted, then disappeared into darkness. The final illusion, becoming the enemy. James fell through the void. When he landed, he was no longer human. He looked down at his hands. They were alien. Armor covered his body. A dark, powerful energy pulsed through his veins. He saw his reflection in a metal wall. He had become one of them. The Queen's voice whispered in his mind, "Why resist, James? Join us. You are strong. You could rule beside me." The alien body felt powerful, stronger than before. For a split second, James felt the temptation. But then he remembered. Strength wasn't just about power. Strength was about choice, and he would never be their pawn. James took a deep breath and rejected the illusion. Breaking free. Back in reality, alarms blared. Sparks flew from the machine as James' mind fought back against the programming. The nodes on his temple snapped off, and the entire system overloaded, shutting down. James gasped for air, his body shaking. He had won. Zyra stood in front of him, her face unreadable. For the first time, she looked impressed. "No human has ever broken free from my mind trials," she admitted. James, still breathless, gave her a defiant smirk. "Guess I'm just built different." The Queen tilted her head. "Perhaps." She turned to the guards. "Release him." The restraints clicked open, and James collapsed onto his knees, exhausted but victorious. Zyra stepped closer, looking down at him. "You are proving to be interesting, James Carter." James wiped the sweat from his face. "Glad I could entertain you." The Queen gave a small smile. "We are not done yet. There is still one more test." James exhaled. "Of course there is." Hook ending. The final test. A door slid open, revealing a blinding white light. Beyond it, James could hear something. Massive breathing. The Queen's voice was softer this time. "Your final trial awaits, human. Pass this, and you will earn something no human has ever had before." James, still exhausted, forced himself to stand. "And what's that?" Zyra's silver eyes gleamed. "A choice." James stepped forward, into the unknown, into his final test. The Queen's true plan. A dark secret is revealed. James Carter's body ached. His muscles screamed for rest, but he kept moving. The final trial's door stood open before him, a blinding white light spilling out into the chamber. Behind him, the alien queen, Tyra, watched in silence. This time, she wasn't mocking him. This time, she wasn't treating him like a mere test subject. Something had changed. James felt it in the air, a shift in the game. He wasn't just some human prisoner anymore. Now he was something more. Or at least, he had become something she needed. Beyond the door, a secret meeting. James stepped forward into the unknown. Instead of another combat arena, he found himself in a vast chamber, filled with floating holograms and deep, pulsating blue energy. The room was different from the rest of the warship, not made for torture, not made for war. This place was a throne room. At the center stood a massive circular console, glowing with shifting alien symbols. The room itself felt ancient, powerful. James barely had time to take it in before the doors slid shut behind him. A strange, static silence filled the air. Then the Queen spoke softly from behind him. "You are wondering why I spared you, why I tested you, why you are still alive." James turned to face her, his fists clenched out of instinct. "I figured you just like watching me suffer," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Zara smiled, but there was something in her eyes, something cold and calculating. "No, James Carter, you are still alive because you are useful, the dark secret of the Empire." She walked toward the console, pressing her hand against its surface. Immediately, the hologram shifted, projecting images of planets, galaxies, armies, and something else. James' breath caught. A massive war fleet, thousands of ships, all of them human-made. What the hell? James took a step closer, his mind racing. That's Earth's technology. That's us. Syra nodded. Yes. And no. She gestured toward a glowing figure in the hologram. A tall, armored man standing at the front of the fleet, his face hidden beneath a steel mask. James' blood went cold. Who the hell is that? Zyra's silver eyes darkened. Your own kind, James. A human traitor. A warlord. A man who is building an empire, one that will wipe out both humans and aliens alike. James felt his pulse quicken. This didn't make sense. Earth was weak. The last space outpost had fallen. How could a human be leading this? The Queen turned to face him, her voice steady. His name is General Adrian Voss, once a soldier of Earth. Now, something far worse. James clenched his jaw. He knew that name. Adrian Voss had been one of Earth's most brilliant strategists before the outpost fell. He had vanished during the war. Everyone thought he had died. But no, he had betrayed them. He's working with aliens, James muttered, looking at the ships again. He's building an empire. Zyra nodded. And he will not stop until everything, humans, my people, every species in the galaxy, is under his rule. James stared at her. And you want me to stop him? Zyra stepped closer, her gaze piercing. I need someone who cannot be controlled, someone who has survived everything thrown at him, someone whose mind is strong enough to resist his manipulation. James exhaled sharply. That's why you tested me. Yes. Everything clicked into place. The combat trials, to see if he could endure. The mind control tests, to see if he could resist. Zyra wasn't training him to be her soldier. She was training him to kill Adrian Voss. The truth about the alien queen. James looked at the Queen again, his mind swirling with 100 thoughts. You're scared of him. Zyra's expression didn't change, but he saw the faintest flicker in her eyes. I do not fear him, she said slowly. But I understand what he is capable of. I understand that he is not bound by honor, by reason, or by loyalty. He is a predator, and predators do not stop. James let her words sink in. Then he frowned. Why not just kill him yourself? You have armies, fleets, technology. Xira shook her head. It is not so simple. He has already gained power among my kind. Some of my highest generals support him. If I strike too soon, the empire will fall into civil war. But a human, an outsider, can reach him where I cannot. James laughed dryly. So what, you expect me to be your assassin? Tahira tilted her head. No, James Carter. I expect you to be a warrior, to fight not for me, but for your own kind. Because if he is not stopped, Earth will never rise again. That hit harder than James expected. For a long moment, he was silent. Then he asked the question that had been in the back of his mind since he woke up on this ship. And what do you get out of this, Queen? Zaira's expression finally softened. Survival. James exhaled. There it was, the truth. She wasn't just using him. She was desperate. The decision. The holograms flickered off. The room fell into silence. Zaira stepped back. The choice is yours, James Carter. Help me, and I will give you the power to stop him. Refuse, and I will send you back to Earth. But know this, your world will not survive what comes next. James stared at her. He wasn't sure if he trusted her. Hell, he wasn't sure if he trusted himself. But one thing was certain. Adrian Voss was out there, building an empire, turning humans into weapons, and if he wasn't stopped, Earth was doomed. James clenched his fists. I don't trust you, he said. Zaira smiled faintly. That is why you are perfect for this mission. James let out a slow breath. Then, finally, fine, I'll do it. The Queen nodded. Then we begin. The doors to the chamber opened, revealing a long, dark corridor leading deeper into the ship. James took a step forward, knowing that whatever lay ahead, there was no turning back now. The betrayal. An unexpected attack. James Carter walked down the dimly lit corridor of the alien warship, his mind racing. The decision he had just made, to help the alien queen stop General Adrian Voss, weighed heavily on his shoulders. He didn't trust her, but he trusted Voss even less. A human warlord, leading an army of alien defectors, bent on conquering the galaxy. That was something James could not ignore. As he followed Zaira through the halls of her ship, his thoughts drifted. What was Earth like now? Were there still humans fighting? Had they already lost? Too many questions, not enough answers. Suddenly, boom! A violent explosion shook the ship, sending a tremor through the floor. The walls trembled, lights flickered. James instinctively dropped into a defensive stance, his combat reflexes kicking in. Then, alarms blared. Zaira's silver eyes narrowed. No, it's too soon. James turned to her. What's happening? Before she could answer, the communicator on her wrist flashed red. A deep, gravelly alien voice came through. My queen, we are under attack. The warlord's forces have breached the lower decks. James' blood ran cold. Voss had found them. The betrayal unfolds. The ship rocked violently again as another explosion shook its foundation. Zaira turned sharply, barking orders into her communicator. Lock down the bridge. Activate all defenses. No one leaves this ship alive. James pulled his fists up, his mind racing. How had Voss forces found them so fast? There was only one possibility. You were betrayed, he said grimly. Zaira's expression remained cold, but he saw something in her eyes, a flicker of realization. She nodded. Yes. James exhaled sharply. Who? Before she could answer, the corridor doors ahead of them slammed shut, and a voice rang through the ship's speakers. A voice James hadn't heard in years. A voice that sent a wave of rage through his chest. James Carter. James froze. The holographic display above them flickered, revealing a figure in dark armor, standing in a command center, a cruel smirk on his face. Adrian Voss. His old commander. The traitor. James' fists clenched. "You son of a—" Voss chuckled, still full of fire. "I see. That's good. It'll make this easier." Voss offered. James felt the tension in the air shift. This wasn't just an attack. This was a trap. Voss leaned in, his voice dripping with amusement. "Come on, James. You don't actually trust her, do you?" James didn't respond. Voss continued. "She's been lying to you, you know. The war she wants to stop. She started it. The so-called empire she wants to save. She built it through blood and conquest. And now, she's desperate. Desperate enough to use you." James glanced at Tyra. She didn't deny it. But she didn't look guilty, either. Just calm. James exhaled. "And you're any better?" Voss grinned. "Of course I am." He stepped back, gesturing behind him. The hologram shifted, showing a massive fleet of ships, human and alien, united under one banner. His banner. Voss' voice lowered. "I'm building something greater than Earth ever dreamed of. A future where humans are not the weaklings of the galaxy. A future where we are kings, not survivors." James scoffed. "You mean slaves?" Voss sighed. "Still thinking like a soldier. Still following orders. You could be so much more, James." The hologram flickered again, showing a massive planet in chains. Earth. James' heart skipped a beat. Voss tilted his head. "Make the right choice, Carter. Stand with me. Together, we can take the galaxy. We can be the strongest race in the universe." Silence. Zara finally spoke. "And if he refuses?" Voss' smirk disappeared. "Then he dies." The betrayal strikes. Before James could react, the walls of the corridor exploded inward, sending fire and debris flying. James hit the ground hard, rolling to avoid the shrapnel. Through the smoke, figures emerged. Not aliens. Humans. Soldiers in Voss armor, their rifles trained on him. James' stomach twisted. These were his own kind. Humans, fighting for Voss. Betrayers. Damn it. The leader of the squad stepped forward, his helmet retracting. James recognized him instantly. Captain Rourke. His former teammate. His brother in arms. Now his enemy. Rourke's expression was cold. "You should have taken his offer, Carter." James slowly stood up. His knuckles cracked as he clenched his fists. "Not a chance in hell." Rourke sighed. "Then we finish this here." The fight for survival. James moved first. Before the soldiers could fire, he grabbed a fallen rifle, rolling behind cover as gunfire erupted. Zara moved like a shadow, her energy blade igniting in her hands, slicing through one soldier before he could react. James used the distraction, lunging at Rourke. The two men collided like titans, fists slamming into each other. Rourke was fast, but James was faster. He twisted, using his momentum to slam Rourke into the wall. But Rourke wasn't down yet. He drove his knee into James' ribs, throwing him back. Still predictable. Carter. James wiped blood from his mouth. Still a traitor. Rourke. They charged at each other again. Meanwhile, Syra was outnumbered, her blade cutting through soldiers as she dodged blasts of plasma. The corridor was turning into a war zone. And in the middle of it all, Voss watched, waiting, testing James one last time. A desperate escape. James blocked another punch from Rourke, twisting his arm and slamming him to the ground. "Enough of this," he growled. He turned, grabbed one of the soldiers' rifles, and fired a single shot at the ceiling above them. The structure collapsed. Dust, metal, and debris rained down, forcing everyone to scatter. James grabbed Sarah's arm, pulling her toward an escape hatch. "Go," she shouted. They ran. Behind them, Rourke pushed himself out of the rubble, glaring after them. Voss' voice crackled through the comms. "Let them go, Rourke. We'll find them again." As James and Sarah sprinted down the corridor, James growled under his breath. "Next time, We're the ones bringing the fight to him." Zyra smirked. "Now you're thinking like a warlord." James didn't respond. Because deep down, he knew. The real war was just beginning. The final test. The Queen's last gamble. James Carter and Queen Zyra ran through the warship's corridors, their footsteps echoing as alarms blared all around them. The betrayal had hit hard. Adrian Voss was here. He had sent his soldiers, human soldiers, to kill James and seize control of the Queen's empire. And now James and Zyra were outnumbered, outgunned, and running out of time. They needed a way out. Fast. Escape to the inner sanctum. Zyra skidded to a stop at a sealed blast door, slamming her hand onto a glowing panel. James turned, weapon raised, covering her. He could hear Voss soldiers closing in. "Hurry up, Queen," he growled. Zyra didn't respond. Her eyes locked onto the biometric scanner as it scanned her genetic code. A robotic voice echoed through the ship. Identity confirmed. Access granted. The blast doors slid open, revealing the dark, ancient-looking chamber beyond. Zyra grabbed James' wrist and yanked him inside. The doors slammed shut behind them. And then, silence. The alarms, the gunfire, the battle, it all vanished. James breathed heavily, lowering his weapon as he scanned the room. It was different from the rest of the ship. The walls were covered in strange glowing symbols, swirling with energy. At the center stood a floating console, its core pulsing with blue and gold light. James could feel the raw power in the air. This was not just any room. This was the heart of the Empire, the ultimate weapon, a choice of power. Zyra turned to him, her expression calm but serious. "James Carter, this is where I make my final offer." James narrowed his eyes. "Offer? I thought we were escaping." Zyra shook her head. "This war will not be won by running. If you want to stop Adrian Voss, you need more than just your fists. You need power. And I am offering you the greatest power of all." She stepped toward the floating console and raised her hand. The symbols on the walls flared to life. And then something rose from the ground. A black, crystalline object, shaped like a gauntlet, floating in midair. It pulsed with a deep golden glow. James frowned. "What the hell is that?" Zyra turned to face him. The Celestial Core. James had heard the name before. Whispers, legends, rumors in deep space. A weapon. An artifact older than the Empire itself. It was said to grant the one who wielded it unimaginable power. Zyra's voice was steady. "Only one being can use it. Someone whose willpower is unbreakable. Someone who refuses to be controlled. Someone who has survived every trial." She locked eyes with him. "Someone like you." James took a step back. No way. He wasn't stupid. Power like this always came with a price. If this thing is so strong, why haven't you used it? Asterisk, he asked. Zyra hesitated. Then, for the first time, she looked uncertain. "Because I am not worthy." James stared at her, stunned. "What?" Zyra took a deep breath. "This artifact was created by a race older than both humans and my kind. It does not serve rulers. It does not serve tyrants. It chooses a warrior, not a king. I tried to use it once. It rejected me." She looked at him. "But it will not reject you. The final test, power or freedom." James felt the weight of the moment. This was it, the final test. Not of his strength, not of his endurance, but of his soul. If he took the Celestial Core, he would have the power to wipe out Voss and his army in an instant. But what if the power changed him? What if he became the next warlord? James clenched his fists. "No." Zyra frowned. "No." James stepped back. "I've seen what power like this does to people. Voss wants to rule the galaxy. You want to stop him. But in the end, both of you are fighting for control." He shook his head. "I fight for freedom, not control." Zaira stared at him for a long time. Then she smiled. Not a mocking smile, not a cruel one, but one of genuine respect. That, she said softly, is why it has chosen you. Before James could react, the celestial core moved toward him. It latched onto his arm, its golden light flaring. And James Carter changed forever. The evolution of a warrior. The energy pulsed through him, burning but not painful. It felt like clarity, strength, power without corruption. The celestial core didn't take control of him. It adapted to him. James clenched his fist, feeling the raw potential surging through his veins. He turned to Zaira. Looks like I passed your test. Zaira nodded. Then it is time to end this war. The blast doors shook violently as Voss soldiers finally reached them. James turned toward the entrance. And for the first time, he wasn't afraid. The real battle was about to begin. The human king. A warrior's final choice. The doors exploded inward, sending metal shards flying through the chamber. Smoke and fire billowed through the entrance as Voss soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Their red armor gleamed under the flickering blue lights of the throne room. James Carter stood at the center. The celestial core fused to his arm, its golden energy pulsing through his veins. His mind was clear. His body felt weightless, powerful. But he was still James, still human, and he was ready for war. The final battle. The warlord's arrival. A deep, slow clapping echoed through the chamber. From the shadows, General Adrian Voss stepped forward. Dressed in black war armor, his face hidden beneath a metallic helmet, Voss looked like a king marching onto his battlefield. His cold, calculated voice filled the room. Well, well, well. You really are full of surprises, Carter. James tightened his fists. And you're still full of bullshit, boss. Voss chuckled. Always the soldier, never the leader. You could have had everything, James. Power, purpose, the right to decide the future of humanity. James shook his head. That's not leadership. That's slavery. Voss took a slow step forward. His voice lowered, almost disappointed. You still don't understand, do you? Humanity is weak, James. It always has been. We needed someone to take control, to guide us, to make us strong. His gloved hand clenched into a fist. I was that someone. And now, I will be the only one left standing. Voss raised his hand, and in an instant, his soldiers opened fire. The battle erupted. James unleashed the power of the celestial core. The air exploded with plasma fire, red streaks of energy tearing through the chamber. James moved like a ghost, his newfound power surging through his body. The celestial core activated, a golden energy field pulsing around him. Bullets and plasma rounds bounced off his aura, the impact sending ripples of kinetic force outward. Then, he attacked. James lunged forward, grabbing the first soldier and throwing him across the room like a ragdoll. Another enemy rushed at him. James caught his wrist, twisted, and shattered his armor like glass. Zaira moved beside him, her energy blades flashing as she cut through the enemy ranks. James didn't need a weapon. He was the weapon. The duel, James versus Voss. The chamber shook as the battle raged. Then, everything froze. James turned, and there, standing on the burning battlefield, was Voss. His helmet retracted, revealing his scared face. His eyes were cold, dead inside. He drew his sword, a massive black blade, humming with dark energy. James cracked his neck. All right, traitor, let's end this. Voss smirked. Try and stop me, Carter. Then they charged. The impact was earth-shattering. Voss swung his blade with brutal force, aiming to cleave James in half. But James was faster. He dodged, twisting to the side, and slammed his fist into Voss' ribs. The impact sent a shockwave through the chamber, sending Voss skidding backward. But Voss wasn't just strong. He was smart. He used James' momentum against him, spinning and striking with a brutal kick to James' chest. James stumbled, but didn't fall. Voss wiped blood from his lip. Not bad, but not good enough. James exhaled, his body glowing with golden light. I'm just getting started. The turning point. The final blow. The fight raged on, their movements too fast for the human eye. James' fists struck like thunder, but Voss countered with precision. They were equals, warriors, but one of them had to fall. James saw an opening. Voss lunged, blade raised. James ducked low, spun behind him, and grabbed Voss' sword arm. The celestial core flared, sending a massive surge of energy through James' fist. With one final, earth-shattering punch, he drove his glowing fist straight into Voss' chest. Time seemed to slow. Voss' eyes widened in shock. His body cracked with golden energy, then collapsed to the floor. Silence. Then, the warlord stopped breathing. The end of a tyrant. A new beginning. The remaining soldiers froze. Their leader was dead. Zyra stepped forward, raising her voice. The war is over. Stand down or be destroyed. One by one, the enemy dropped their weapons. James exhaled slowly, stepping away from Voss' lifeless body. He had won. But deep down, it didn't feel like a victory. Voss had been his own kind. A human. A man who had believed in strength above all else. But strength without purpose meant nothing. And James. He had chosen to fight for something greater than power. He had chosen freedom. The human king. A warrior's final choice. Later, as the fires of battle settled, James stood before Ixira. She looked at him with something different this time. Not amusement. Not calculation. Respect. She knelt. You saved my empire. You saved the galaxy. And now, I offer you a throne beside me. James stared at her. A throne. A kingdom. Power. Everything Voss had wanted, but offered differently. And James. He refused. I'm no king, Ixira. I'm just a soldier. Zyra smiled softly. No, James Carter. You are more than that. You are the warrior who changed the fate of the stars. James sighed, looking at the vastness of space through the shattered windows of the warship. He wasn't a ruler. He wasn't a warlord. He was just a human. And that, he realized, was enough. Epilogue. The legend of the unbreakable soldier. Years later, the galaxy still spoke his name. James Carter, the human who defied the stars. Some called him a hero. Others called him a legend. But those who had stood beside him knew the truth. He was just a man. A soldier who had been given a choice, and he had chosen freedom, even when the whole galaxy had told him to kneel.